If rice keeps raising your blood sugar even when you control portions, even when you eat vegetables first, even when you think you're doing everything right, there is one factor most people never test. And it can change your glucose response by up to 30% without changing the rice, the portion, or the recipe. What if the real issue isn't the rice, but the moment you eat it? I'm Dr. Zari, an internal medicine specialist who has worked with diabetic patients for nearly 3 decades. And today, I want to share something that might finally explain why your numbers don't behave the way you expect. Stay with me, because the most important insight will come near the end, and it involves a simple experiment you can run this week that will reveal your body's hidden rhythm. If you live with diabetes or prediabetes, this frustration is probably familiar. One day you eat rice and your blood sugar looks acceptable. Another day, the same bowl sends your glucose much higher. You replay the meal in your head. Was the portion bigger? Did you forget protein? Did you make a mistake? This is where many people quietly blame themselves. They think they lack discipline. They feel like failures. But let me be very clear. This is a misunderstanding that creates unnecessary guilt. Diabetes management is not a moral test. It is not about being strong or weak. It is about understanding how your body works and using biology instead of fighting it. Rice is not just food. For many people, it represents comfort, culture, family, and normal life. When someone is told they must give it up forever, something breaks emotionally. That's why extreme rules often fail. The goal is not to remove foods you love. The goal is to place them where your body can handle them best. Here's the key idea that changes everything. Your body is not the same all day long. It follows an internal rhythm that affects hormones, digestion, and blood sugar control. Your pancreas, liver, muscles, and even the receptors on your cells work differently depending on the time of day. This means the same meal can produce a very different glucose curve depending on when you eat it. Think of your metabolism like a team that works in shifts. Earlier in the day, the team is fresh, alert, and efficient. Systems are responsive. Cleanup happens quickly. Later in the evening, the team is smaller and slower. If a large task arrives right before the shift ends, it takes much longer to finish. The task didn't change. The timing did. Rice is that task. Your glucose control system is the team. Research in Chrononutrition, the study of how meal timing interacts with the body's internal clock, shows that insulin sensitivity is often higher earlier in the day and lower in the evening. Insulin sensitivity describes how well your cells respond to insulin and pull glucose out of the bloodstream. When sensitivity is higher, glucose clears more smoothly. When it's lower, glucose stays elevated longer. This doesn't mean the glycemic index of rice magically changes at night. The laboratory number stays the same. What changes is your body's response. In real life, rice eaten late can behave like a higher impact food because your system is less prepared to manage it. Studies have shown that people who eat the exact same high carbohydrate meal at breakfast and then again at dinner experience significantly higher glucose spikes in the evening, sometimes 20 to 30% higher, even though the food was identical. That's why people often say rice is fine at lunch, but terrible at dinner. They are not imagining it. Their body is telling them the truth. Let me share a pattern I've seen many times. I had a patient, let's call him Ahmed, who came to me frustrated and defeated. Ahmed is 58, an engineer who works long hours. He was careful about his diet. Portions were measured. Vegetables were included. Sugary drinks were avoided. And yet his fasting blood sugar remained stubbornly high, hovering around 160 every morning. When we looked closely at his routine, one detail stood out. Ahmed skipped breakfast, had a light lunch at his desk, and then came home around 9 o'clock at night for his main meal, a large plate with rice, chicken, and vegetables. He thought he was being disciplined by saving his calories for the end of the day. But his body was struggling because he was asking it to process a heavy carbohydrate load right when it was trying to shut down for sleep. So we tried something simple. We didn't ban rice. We didn't cut portions. We didn't add new medications. We just moved the timing. I asked Ahmed to eat his main rice meal at lunch, around noon or 1 o'clock. His dinner became mostly grilled fish or chicken, a large salad, sautéed vegetables, and just 2 or 3 spoonfuls of rice for the taste and tradition he loved. Within 10 days, Ahmed's fasting blood sugar dropped from 160 to 132. His evening glucose readings, which used to spike to 210 after dinner, now stayed below 160. Ahmed didn't eat less rice. He just moved it. That timing shift alone made his body 30% better at managing the same food. Several factors combine to make evening rice harder to handle. In the evening, insulin release can be naturally lower. Your muscle cells are less responsive to insulin signals because physical activity typically drops after dinner. Most people sit more in the evening, watching television, reading, or relaxing. And as bedtime approaches, the body shifts toward rest and storage rather than rapid glucose disposal. When a carb-heavy meal meets low movement and a slower metabolism, glucose has fewer exits. It lingers longer in the bloodstream. This can also affect the next morning. If glucose stays elevated late into the night, your body's overnight regulation can shift. You wake up with higher fasting numbers and assume the problem happened during sleep, when it actually started with the timing of dinner. This is one reason fasting glucose can feel confusing and discouraging. You think you're doing everything right at breakfast, but the real issue was dinner 8 hours earlier. Now, it's important to create emotional safety here. This is not about making you afraid of dinner. Life is not lived in a laboratory. Families eat together. Cultures matter. Traditions are important. A plan that ignores this reality will not last. Understanding timing is not about restriction. It is about flexibility. Timing gives you another tool, another lever to pull when food choices and portions alone are not enough. So let's gently reframe the question. Instead of asking, "Can I eat rice?" ask, "Where does rice fit best in my day?" That shift moves you from fear to strategy. Here are practical ways to apply this idea without turning your life upside down. First, if rice is part of your routine, try to make your main rice portion a daytime meal. Lunch is often ideal. For some people, breakfast works too, depending on medication and personal habits. Earlier placement gives rice the best metabolic environment. Second, if dinner is the main family meal and rice is culturally important, don't eliminate it. Resize it. Let vegetables and protein take up most of the plate. Let rice become the smallest component instead of the center. A few spoonfuls let you participate fully in the meal while reducing the late evening glucose load. Third, pay attention to the time between dinner and sleep. Finishing a carbohydrate-heavy meal 3 to 4 hours before bedtime gives your body more time to process glucose while you're still awake and moving. Even shifting dinner earlier by 30 to 60 minutes can help some people significantly. Fourth, avoid stacking carbohydrates at night. Rice combined with bread, dessert, or sweet drinks creates a cumulative effect that is much harder to manage late in the day. Many spikes happen not because of rice alone, but because rice becomes part of a carbohydrate pile. Fifth, remember movement. A short walk after dinner, even 10 to 15 minutes, can significantly improve post-meal glucose for many people. Muscle contraction helps move glucose out of the bloodstream, acting like a natural sink. This is especially powerful after an evening meal. Even when timing isn't ideal, there is one more tool worth using. The order in which you eat matters. Starting your meal with vegetables and protein and leaving rice for later can reduce the glucose rise compared to eating rice first. Think of it as laying down a slow barrier before fast carbohydrates arrive. Fiber from vegetables creates a kind of mesh in your intestines that slows glucose absorption. Protein and healthy fats slow gastric emptying, meaning food leaves your stomach more gradually. By the time rice arrives, there's already a buffer waiting. This small habit can soften spikes by as much as 30 to 40%, especially at dinner when your metabolism is naturally slower. Now we come to the most important practical step, the one most people never do, but the one that will teach you more than any article or video ever could. Run a personal timing experiment. This is simple and powerful. Choose one rice meal you can repeat. Same type of rice, same portion size, same protein, same vegetables. Eat it at lunch on one day. Measure your glucose before the meal and 2 hours after. Write down the numbers. On another day, eat the exact same meal at dinner, ideally around 7 or 8 in the evening, and measure again. Before and 2 hours after. Compare the patterns, not just a single number. You are not looking for perfection. You are looking for a difference. If dinner rice consistently leads to higher or longer spikes, you've learned something invaluable about your own body. And if the difference is small, that information matters too. Data replaces guilt. Knowledge replaces fear. This experiment transforms you from someone who follows rules into someone who understands their own biology. And that understanding is the foundation of long-term success. Rice can fit into a diabetes-friendly life. The same rice can behave very differently depending on when you eat it, how large the portion is, what else is on the plate, and what you do afterward. By respecting your body's rhythm, you work with biology instead of against it. You stop fighting yourself and start cooperating with the natural systems that are already trying to keep you healthy. Living well with diabetes is not about constant sacrifice. It is about smart adjustments that fit into real life. Timing is one of the simplest adjustments with the biggest potential impact. And often, the most meaningful changes don't come from removing foods you love, but from placing them where your body can handle them best. So I'll leave you with one question, and I genuinely want you to answer this in the comments below. Have you ever tested the same rice meal at lunch and at dinner and compare your 2-hour glucose response? And if not, are you willing to try this simple experiment for 1 week and share what you discover? Run the experiment. Write down your numbers. And then come back and tell me what your body revealed. Because every single data point you share helps not just you, but everyone in this community who is trying to find their way. If this message helps you see rice and diabetes in a new light, share this video with someone who might be stuck in the guilt cycle, thinking they're failing when they're actually just missing one piece of the puzzle. And if you want to learn about another surprising factor that changes how rice affects your blood sugar, the cooling and reheating trick that creates resistant starch, let me know in the comments and I'll cover that next. Because diabetes doesn't have to be a life sentence of bland food and rigid rules. It can be a journey of discovery, learning how your unique body works and how to nourish it wisely. Thank you for trusting me with your time and your health. I'll see you in the next video.